Welcome. We are in a new emission of Globedades, this podcast from the Faculty of Global Studies at Anáhuac University, Mexico. And today I have the pleasure of having a friend from urban research. We have been acquainted since a couple of years back, and we have taken part in international conferences and in mainly in urban issues. And he's a specialist, a PhD, and a very, very good friend, Dr. Lars Anton Engberg. Good to have you here, Lars.
It's good to be here.
Excellent. So, how have you been?
I'm good. I'm doing well. It's autumn. It's almost spring in Copenhagen, Denmark. So I'm enjoying it.
Great. And today we are going to talk about a very interesting initiative where you have been involved in the last couple of years, which is the Planetary Guardians initiative. Now, why is it interesting, or why is it important, and how did you get involved in this whole movement?
Yeah, so this is back in 2019. I was actually reading The Guardian, and there was this climate catastrophe in Australia, Southeast Australia. And suddenly this inspiration came that, what's going on our planet now is, it's not really well. There's something that's not in balance. And I felt this, care and love for the planet, basically. And I felt as if I was like a planetary guardian. I felt that energy. And also I felt that would be a really cool initiative to start going with that, developing that. So feeling that, I basically made a shout out to friends and people in general. If you feel like this, wanting to embrace a planetary outlook, and also to, make a difference in terms of caring for nature, maybe you're also a planetary guardian, a PG sort of. So very inspired by the Danish Rewilding movement. People in Denmark are doing, some of them are becoming more interested in how to regenerate nature, how to also allow for wild nature. And this rewilding process is a very tangible and very, I think, very magical new development in land management. So inspired by that, and inspired by, I think, a new situation where all of us sort of, want things to calm down and, care for the species and protect what is already there. It's sort of, sharing that vibe. So I've been developing that with friends ever since, and it's a slow grow process. We slowly but steadily develop cool projects.
Great, Lars. And could you elaborate a bit more about? You mentioned rewilding. What is? Can you tell our audience what is rewilding and how does it work?
It's very simple. It's basically to allow for natural processes in nature to unfold. So to give space for natural processes. And because most land is managed by, cultural interests of various sorts, you rarely find land that is, wild, with indigenous species who have been left alone for a long period of time. So therefore, rewilding is, hands off, but also maybe having huge grazers to eat the grass, or you can have various approaches to the particulars of a rewilding initiative. Yet the main essence here is to allow nature to unfold, and to give space and to create habitats for a multiplicity of indigenous, of native species to thrive and to coexist in this rewilding process. And you can do it in your own gardens. As a house owner, you can you can, create a small forest corner in your garden and throw the cutoffs in there, and things will happen. So rewilding is, in a sense, also a mental process where you let go and just let nature be nature.
Okay. Could you give us like some examples, like on a larger scale? And then you mentioned this aspect that it can be done in one's garden. So that's a very interesting thing as well. So yeah, but could you tell us like an example of how this could work, for example, in a locality or in a state or somewhere?
Yeah, for instance, in Denmark, we have national parks, and these national parks have been managed by a particular management approach to land management, maybe with some tree production or some, you know, ways of management that were not necessarily oriented towards biodiversity and the proliferation of biodiversity. And this public discourse has been going on for maybe a decade, and now we have a new initiative where we've decided to make nature national parks, which is in essence to rewild the national parks. And to do this, the typical strategy would be to have large grazers, a new species introduced in the area, which also means that public access to the area changes, and you have to, go into these areas in a new way, and you have to get used to that. You might meet animals which are wild, and how to approach them and be with them. But what they do is that they create habitats for other species in that grazing process, and it's sort of cascading through the different levels of the food chain in that living system. And over time, you would see indigenous species, and from plants to fungi to species that require some disturbance also in the park to arrive and to thrive. So it's a very actually quite a beautiful strategy, because we're not used to that. No, most of us, we have this park mentality, and this is different. It's allowing the wilderness to
Come back
reemerge,
in a way, right?
come back, yeah,
Re-emerge.
reemerge.
And could you tell us an example outside of Denmark? Do you know of other places where this has been carried out?
You can look at Rewilding Europe, for instance. Really, really cool organization that is rewilding areas in different parts of Europe. In the UK, you have cool projects. So it's about enjoying wild nature, and also supporting green jobs, new type of sustainable job creation into these sites of rewilded nature. And people want to visit because it's actually really nice to experience wild nature. So there's also like an economic component to these projects. It's always like a negotiation process, because how to have a conversation with all interested parties when you rewild an area. There might be farmers there who need a livelihood, and would then change their roles from farming to caretakers of a rewilded area. Or you can it's a conversation, and it's a very important conversation that is going on in many places in Europe, and also in the US and other places. To allow larger corridors of nature to connect, and also to care for the biodiversity hotspots with important species that are threatened, endangered, and to build larger corridors around these habitats, so that we protect the species in that process. So you see it many where you can Google it. Like rewilding is quite a common topic.
Great, Lars. Just a reminder that today we are talking about the Planetary Guardians initiative. This is Globedades, a podcast from the Faculty of Global Studies at Universidad Anáhuac, Mexico. And we are talking to Dr. Lars Anton Engberg. So there is another concept that you manage within this initiative, which is the one dealing with the green hubs. Could you tell us what is a green hub and how does it work?
I would prefer to start with the other component to illustrate the green hub, if that's okay with you, which is the food
Perfect.
forest
The food,
activity. Yeah, to plant a food
okay.
forest,
The
and
food
then
forest. Okay.
yeah, can tap into the green hub. So if we step back one step and look at the planetary situation, you could describe it as the tragedy of the commons. Everybody is competing for a cut of the value chain, and the cake is the commons are deteriorating, and that competition for access to something that is becoming more and more scarce is sort of a scarcity game, a
Yeah,
scarcity situation.
of course.
With all the impacts we know about in terms of climate and so on. In a sense, the alternative to that would be like the abundance situation, an abundance system. Instead of a scarcity game, we have an abundance game where there's a natural process of emerging qualities and more abundance. And in essence, that's nature, because nature is like that. And a food forest would then be an abundance system where people also produce foods, to feed themselves and to enjoy all the benefits of holistic system of natural forest process that also serves other purposes for the people in that locality. So a food forest is a way to start by growing a multi-species primarily indigenous forest with food production in it, with various produce and timber, and it's also about carbon capture and so on. There are many aspects of a food forest, and that system in itself can inspire like a green hub type of activity, which would then be like a more generous collaboration into natural and sustainable and also regenerative types of economic activities that would sort of mirror or reflect or support that abundance in the forest system. So a green hub could, for example, be local schools to take pupils out in the system to teach them about nature and biodiversity and regenerative projects. It could be cleaning of grey water could be soil regeneration, or it could be a citywide strategy to increase the resilience of cities with extreme weather situations. You would have a strategy there to also create knowledge exchange of regenerative solutions that would increase the resilience of the city. So a green hub is basically something that regenerates and also shares knowledge and good practice into a more open source type of collaboration. So a hub modality. So it's sort of like the people component of the forest system in a sense. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's very interesting what you're saying, because basically it's like having a network of how would you call them, like green activities or regenerating activities around, for example, the household, then around the schools, the education of children, and then around larger places within urban spaces, and then this will in a can be considered like a unit, and this will be considered a green hub. Would that
Yes.
more or less, that is the concept, right?
Yeah. For instance, if you are an urban farmer producing for a local market, but also a global market with a particular product that would grow in this forest system, then you could sort of build an economic sustainable activity in the green hub, which would maybe also entail that you would have a conversation with people on the other side of the planet because they follow your local activity. The social media platform is so powerful these days that we can engage with regenerative economic exchanges that would support the locality but also inspire green hubs in other places. So essentially it would be all types of projects that would serve the locality in the regenerative activity also cleaning, purifying air. The smog situation. It could be about solar energy or biogas projects, or it could be also sewage issues, how to deal with the sewage situation in more how can I say, to mimic nature and how it purifies and cleans. It could also be cleaning of chemical deposits and so on. Nature has an immense power in this regenerative
healing itself, right?
You could use that word, healing. Yes, I agree with you.
Like healing itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting what you mentioned about learning processes between experiences that are taking place. And how would you recommend, or which are the steps that you have been taking to have like this international cooperation between experiences, people, or how do you manage this theme with this initiative?
For me, it's about connecting with people. So, like yourself, like we're friends and we know who we are and we know what we share, and there's an authenticity in that. So it's really a network-based and very slow process of connecting with friends and sharing that and co-creating that. So it's a process of co-creating, a co-creation, and you could say that co-creation is the key word here. How do we co-create something when we live in different parts of the world? We have very different realities. We are also positioned differently in terms of interests or epistemologies, like what we know, our professional approach to stuff. How do we then fill into these boundaries and co-create something that serves all of us in that process? And the essence of that is also the Green Hub learning journey. So when we do that in our locality, we know the process, we know the complexity of just making the right thing in that regenerative activity, and then we can connect with other people who are doing the same. So for me, it's very much on the personal level, I would say. That's my experience, at least.
And how about the cooperation between countries from the global north and countries from the global south? Because I mean, one could expect of having these types of initiatives in countries like Denmark or in a European context. But then when we move to the global south, perhaps, well, the priorities are definitely different, and people are in another type of mood, and maybe,
Mhm.
I mean, although this is a global problem, the way we are damaging the environment on a daily basis. But however, I mean, I believe that since in the global north the context is like more where basic needs are already solved, and you have the time to think about really what some actions which are required. And perhaps in the global south is a bit different. How do you, I mean, or which would be like some recommendations that you can give so that in the global south these kinds of actions are taken in the same direction?
Thank you for the question. I would step back and say it's on you. It's for you to find out whether you resonate with nature, whether you want to care for a living nature and the process of regenerating, uh, you know, the habitats and the natural environments for species and people. So once you feel that, once you connect with that process, then there's no border, there's no political dimension in a sense, because it's just caring for nature where we live and on a planetary scale. And everybody who wants to do that, please do it. Go ahead. There's no sort of blueprint thought out and delivered from the north to the south or anything like that. It's more like we all live on the same living planet, and when we care for that, we can do something, and that's basically it. It's quite. I would consider myself as a nature activist, and not a politician, or not like, I'm not giving good advice here, I'm not, seriously, I'm not, I like to do it myself, like to engage with nature and connect with that process. So I just connect with other people who likes the same thing. It's very low key, very practical, and yeah, we all have embedded knowledge of how we feel we thrive in our own habitat, so to speak, and therefore we just support each other. We can give each other a shoulder in that process of regenerating something that is serving people also, because the way that cities are polluting, and also the level of stress and the level of hardship in cities is just beyond sometimes. And in that, to create small green spots and sanctuaries of peaceful nature, where you can also step out of the normal process and get in there, and maybe start growing from that point into the larger city region, and to care for that city region in a regenerative approach, rewilding approach, of creating also sustainable land management projects that would serve a holistic bouquet of interests in that collective impact strategy. I think it makes sense to anybody feeling it, so there's not really this north-south issue in
Yes.
my experience, but I don't know,
No, I think we're talking about a global issue. I mean,
yeah.
it has nothing to do with politics or with other types of things like foreign intervention or anything like that. But I guess the environment and the way we carry out our daily activities has had an effect on the environment. It's more than evident. So initiatives like this one, I think they start like making people think about how to do something from starting by yourself, as you said it. Because if we do not do something, I mean, no one is going to do it. So we need to get engaged, and this process of engagement needs to be within us, within all of us, I guess.
I would say we don't need to, like, if we don't feel it, please don't like it. When you do feel it and fall in love with that, care for nature, then it's easy peasy in a sense. Like, I was remembering the axolotl that lives in Mexico City, or used to live in the
Yes,
channels.
yes, 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 yes.
That was actually I saw like this cute axolotl picture on my screen, in 19. I was just, whoa, that species is just, wow, yeah, like it's a magical, I don't know, but
Yeah,
really, like, whoa. So,
very unique, endogenous, unique. It only lives in one place, so
why would I not care for that species? Like, it's very, very basic.
yeah, yeah. So just a reminder for the people who are listening to this podcast today, we are talking about Planetary Guardians, the Planetary Guardians initiative. This is Globedades, a podcast from the Faculty of Global Studies at Anáhuac University, Mexico. And Lars, so uh, how do you see the future or the engagement or the growth of this initiative? Do you think, are you having the response that you expect, or how do you see the future of this organization and the initiatives they carry around the whole planet?
Yeah, it's always difficult to forecast anything. What I do know is that, the planetary conversation about climate and the biodiversity crisis, and also the humanitarian crisis in that, I think that what's on the table now is how can we co-create co-benefit projects, in the sense that we engage with projects that would deliver solutions into all the areas, all the crisis situations in people's lives, in cities and outside the cities. And for me, the most obvious thing to do is to plant forest systems, which are natural endemic forest systems, to reboot natural water flows, to regenerate the soils, to capture carbon, and to improve the microclimate, and also to produce food when you use the food forest approach, and to empower a regenerative shift in the mindsets and in the practical economic activities of people, to mimic nature and to develop economic activities that would sort of create and co-create an abundance system, so that we go from this scarcity drama of overeating and overpolluting and really destroying our own livelihoods and habitats into a situation where we can actually learn from and work with nature, and also relax a little bit in that process. So it's quite intense for me what's going on the planet, and in that, why not just slow down a bit, look in the long term, so that what we do today will benefit also people in 10, 20 and 50 and 100 years. Of course, why not? And the incentive structures right now on the market are not really the main drivers of a long-term care for the entirety of the planetary system. And in that awareness that we all share, how can we then, each of us just, do the right thing in that, care for everything there is on one habitat for humanity. That's how I feel it. And when I feel it like that, then let's just find out what happens. People are free to do their own thing, and I don't know I don't know, but I'm really how can I say this? It's such a heartwarming experience when, for instance, we have a project in Karachi in Pakistan, and the people there, they're so ready, and they're doing it, planting trees and supporting pupils in that, and there are so many. The time is right to co-create new alliances for regenerative care for a planet that is not thriving. The people are not thriving. Maybe the planet is, but people are not. And the species, we live in the period of the sixth mass extinction. So we risk that species that are in and of themselves magical beings or species will disappear. And why not, wake up to that situation and start to care for nature and this rewilding process on the planet, and just take it as far as we can, on land and in the seas also. That's, I think, is sort of the basic vibration of the PG initiative, that we do that. And I'm very optimistic actually in the current situation, but I'm also privileged in the sense that Copenhagen is outside of the May. There are no earthquakes or extreme weather situations here. We can navigate that. So at the same time, I don't know the solutions to all of that as an individual person, but together we can, I think, start to look in the long planning horizon and start to, plant living, self-regulating natural systems of forests, etc., and rewilded areas that would then, over time, change the whole situation. If you ask me, there's so much to do, and it's so easy. Actually, it's quite hands-on also. So that would be my feel into the current situation, and these co-benefits where we merge the climate and the biodiversity conversations into something that serves local communities from the bottom up. That's where it is for me, and that's why we work with these food forest and green hub type of ideas, and then we want to engage with other groups who also engage with regenerative activities to co-create an abundant system of care for people and species and planet in that. So that's
Yeah,
it.
I find it very interesting that this initiative, I mean, although the main, let's say, aspect of the initiative is, recovering the environment, I think it has an impact in other areas, like the food production, for example. Then you're having like an economic impact as well. or if we talk about cultural aspects, or you know keeping certain indigenous traditions or local traditions.
Yeah,
So it's not only about looking after the environment, but we can say that using the environment as an excuse can provide a a domino effect on several areas, other aspects, and it's not only about the environment, but it has more impacts, of course.
I agree with you, Arturo. I think we've forgotten a lot about how to live with nature and also our own nature, so to speak. Like, we're very in the mind and very stressed out, and the chatterbox sometimes
Yeah.
speaks so loud that we forget to relax and feel a deeper reality of being part of a living system. And I believe we live now in a time where people are stopping up and feeling it differently and relaxing a bit, and opening up to a more natural vibe, I would say. And I see that also here in Copenhagen, where people are, nature is a deep thing, and it's very beautiful, and we can heal and thrive with that, connect. So when we care for nature, we also care for ourselves in the totality of what's going on. And I think people, really, like, I know a lot of people who, think like that. And so yeah, it's very cool. Indigenous groups all over, indigenous communities, uh, they there's so much knowledge there. There's so much wisdom. There's so much grace in the way they live in balanced ways. Also, of course, there's imbalance in these communities as well, in terms of how we care for nature. Of course, like, people are people always. Yet I do believe that we can learn a lot from people who are more closer to nature in their everyday lives. And personally, I'm very, I have a lot of respect for that, and a lot of love for that type of, uh, wisdom, nature wisdom, for sure. So when we mimic nature also in a more, modern version, in hyper complex cities, what does that entail? How can we find a way to make the city as a totality, as a thriving and regenerative system with, circular economies and all of that, cleaning up and reducing the ecological footprint, and not overeating the cake so that everything collapses into a scarcity
Yeah.
uh, syndrome of suffering, and uh, we're sort of facing a little bit a dead end here in the growth strategy. So to open up that situation into abundance strategies, I think that a deeper conversation with indigenous communities all around the planet is very welcome. Like, I would invite that a lot, and personally, I would just sit on the floor, on the ground, and listen, and try to understand how you can, what is there to learn. And so that conversation, I believe, would be like, it's a very, very cool thing to engage with that. Yeah, that's how I feel it.
Well, Lars, it has been a real pleasure talking to you today. Would you like to invite the audience to join this movement? Is how can they join? Is there a way they could do it? I imagine you have like social platforms or something, website where people can contact you. Would you like to tell us more about that?
Yeah, so right now it's sort of still a baby step type of process. Our website is planetaryguardians.global, and we have not yet co-creation um, possibility on that platform. It's more like person to person type of process now.
Okay.
But if anybody's interested, please just write me directly. And when we get more resources into what we do, this will be much more interactive, and with a very clear component of how to co-create your own PG initiative. That's the whole idea. The whole idea is that we just help each other and share good practice. How to design and plant a food forest, how to start building a green hub, how to engage with other people in that activity, and this will definitely be added on as soon. It's not yet fully there. So what we have now is more like some projects that we are working to fund, and we are also, we have we connect with people who are already growing these systems, and so it's still in its infancy, the PG initiative. And on top of that, I know that there's a planetary initiative that is also a PG initiative that you might want to also pay attention to, because later this year, a group of people centered around Johan Rögström, who works with the planetary boundaries, and other people are also opening up a conversation on that, I know. And I think it's a very cool process, because it's basically that we, all of us, just stop up and tap into this care for nature where we live and how to do that, and that's it, take it from there. So, but the website and contact me directly, and then we upload some videos and we tell about different topics, and then at some point in time it will be more sharing a project activity or ways of engaging directly with projects. And we're not yet fully there, but it'll come for sure. It'll come. Yeah.
Well, I wish you success with this initiative, and I hope it's not the last time we have you here in this podcast. It would be good to follow up your latest projects in the future.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lars.
Thank you.
So this was Globedades. This is a podcast from the Faculty of Global Studies at Anáhuac University, Mexico. My name is Arturo Flores, and thank you all for your attention. Bye-bye.